Hello, everybody, and welcome to our little roundtable discussion. We are going to be talking to a very, very strong tank player, I should say, that has been doing this for a very long time. And this individual is MediocreTank. He has been part of our channel for a very long time, and I think that he can really give us some insight on where the tank class or specific role, let's say, is going to be going forward. So, MediocreTank, how you doing? Welcome. How are things going today? How are you?
They're going great today, honestly. I I got done doing some PTR keys, ended up doing some testing, as usual, like a lot of other tanks normally do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I got some thoughts on how a lot of the tanks work, what's going to be good for next season, what won't be good for next season, and how group comps will end up playing with these said tanks. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much it at the moment.
Very, very nice. And we are going to kind of dive into those thoughts and kind of pick your brain a little bit about things that are happening within the tanking classes and the roles, and or role I should say, and kind of we'll talk about that. So, as everybody knows who is here, my name is Lord PeteyTV. Everyone calls me Petey or Lord or whatever you want. So just so everyone has an idea, and I'm here kind of just let's pick his brain. Let's talk to him. So as always, I've always called you like mediocre or tank, whichever. And so you're gonna hear me throwing that back and forth, but it is the one and same person. Now tell us what you think about our tank roles for season 3 of The War Within. What do you think is kind of the foremost strongest class, or I should say strongest spec, or that's going forward, and kind of how you're feeling about as tanks as a whole going into that realm for next season.
Uh, well, to be completely honest, far as like all the far as all the tanks and stuff play at the moment, I would say probably the strongest class far as tanks go, it would honestly have to probably be Brewmaster Monk. Especially with them getting their Mystic Touch buff. They also have great utility. I wouldn't really say that they're a king far as group play goes because they don't really have like the utility required for group play because they only got leg sweep and they also got ring of peace, which ring of peace also helps with stops. And also got paralysis, so
Mm-hmm.
they can sit there, they can use it as a as another figure of stop, but the CD on it is very, very long. It's like I'm pretty sure it's like a 45-second CD once you end up using it.
Mm-hmm.
Ring of Peace works on some mobs. On a lot of other mobs, it's not really the greatest because
Mm-hmm.
some mobs you can knock back, other mobs you can't really knock back. So it kind of makes it like yeah, it's kind of makes it like a iffy option,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. Whenever you have like let's just say you have Prot Warrior, for instance, Prot Warrior has Challenging Shout. Challenging Shout can also interrupt all the mobs if you're spec'd into it, which next season they have the talent tree adjusted to where
Mm-hmm.
you can take it like it's a pretty easy node to take now
Easier now.
compared to last season where you're actually sacrificing a certain node to be able to take it. But with next season, I think it also is a very, very viable option because one, they have extremely good healing. Two, they have good utility. Three, they also have good group defensive with rallying cry.
Mm-hmm.
They also got battle shout, another raid buff like how Mystic Touch is from
Yeah.
Brewmaster. Um, we also have intimidating shout, which that's just another form of CC. It doesn't add to our G well not GCD. What would it be called? DR, for
DR.
instance.
Yeah.
Yep. So intimidating shout doesn't add to the DR table, which is really, really good because
Mm-hmm.
stops like that is like pretty much king and M plus whenever it comes to like interrupting like a bunch of casters and so on. We also have Shockwave, which we can also take. It's I think it's called like Landslide or something like that for
Yeah.
Shockwave, so we can just knock them up. It doesn't have to be a stop, so it doesn't really add to
You can
the
just
DR
knock up
table
the
either.
yeah.
And then we also have BDH as another king role, which I think going into the next season, this is where comp play is going to end up starting to play like a big king figure because we're going to have the melee comp and then we're going to
Mm-hmm.
have the caster comp.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
we were briefly kind of talking about that in the channel, and I was
oh
like,
yeah,
I was like, you got to hold on because I know between you and me, we will start going into these rants when I'm streaming and about like specific things, and you were talking how the the monks having their having their group buff for the groups are really going to force the melee type classes to like bind together for groups and then
yeah, it's
the,
almost required now to have a
right,
brewmaster monk in a group because going from a 5% buff to an 8% buff, they
that's a
don't
lot.
like nobody really understands how much of a big change that
Hmm.
actually is considering for the melee characters.
Right, and Vengeance Demon Hunter on the other side is the caster buff, correct?
Yeah, the
So
caster buff. So
and
you
they're
got
still
Chaos
five,
Brand.
and they're still
But
at the five.
they but Chaos Brand also works with other classes too, though. Like for
Hmm.
instance, Rep Paladin, because where they're sitting there doing holy damage,
The
it's
whole
kind of like a
damage.
sword, it's kind of like a source of magic
Right.
almost. So it also works for them too.
Right. So you're saying I'm just gonna take a step back from what you were saying. So you're saying that Blood DK and Vengeance Demon Hunter are kind of lacking in comparison to the Warriors and the Brewmaster monks then because of their abilities within the groups.
Well, for this next upcoming season, I would
Yeah.
say that BDH, Brewmaster, and Prot Warrior are all the three best tank options at the moment. I would say Prop Paladin is slacking a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very good defensively, but damage
Mm-hmm.
wise, it kind of makes up for it because they're a very, very high damaging tank, considering that they got their buffs to their weapons
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that.
Right. And
Mainly the hero talent.
and uh and like I've ended up tanking more this season than I
Mhm.
have in past seasons. And one thing I have noticed because I played my Guardian Druid, I played my Prot Pally, and I've been playing my brew a lot, and I feel that there's something about Prot Paladin that makes them feel more flimsy than like my Guardian Druid or my Brewmaster Monk now that I'm like leveling it and getting it geared, where I feel like I have to be a little bit more on my toes with the Pally.
Yeah. Well, the main reason for that is their their lightsmith, the way how it used to
Right.
work is when you would get below a certain amount of health, uh, your lightsmith buff that you ended up giving on somebody, your armament,
Mm-hmm.
when you put that on somebody, when you drop below a certain percent of health, you're potentially taking away from your party member's health and it's being added on to you. That way it can keep you alive, but you're also
Right.
killing your teammate in a way.
Yeah.
So it ended up making it a good a good buff in a way, but it also made it a bad buff too because you were also
Right.
killing people in the process. But the damage during that season wasn't bad enough to where it was one-shotting people for instance.
Right. Right. So that's why when you talk about season one using
Yeah, see season
light season one when using Lightsmith, it kind of worked a little bit differently when because we ended up changing it. Why can't I think of the hero High Templar, right? Is that the
yeah,
so
Templar.
so once you want to go to Templar, it kind of ends up being like more damage oriented, and what's ending up happening now is like you're feeling that flimsiness, if you will. So
Mhm.
how do you feel about the other what's the word I'm looking for? The the other abilities that like the other classes are bringing. Because you said I'm sorry, you were saying Brewmaster
Mhm.
and Prot Warrior, and what was the third that you're kind of seeing as the top three right now?
Demon Hunter.
And Demon Hunter. So those three are kind of like sitting on the top scale
Yeah,
for this.
those three at the moment as it stands in the PTR, those three are fighting for the throne right now. Like
Mm-hmm.
which one is going to be the top tank out of those three?
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, Bloody K and Guardian Druid, they're not doing so good in the
Mm-hmm.
PTR.
Right.
Bloody K is pretty much still the same. Guardian Druid, they were doing really good until they got a nerf to their tier set. Anytime that they ended up getting Star Search procs, it would sit there and lower the cooldown of their Lunar Beam.
Yeah.
Um, but now it doesn't do that anymore, so they're fighting to get their Lunar Beam off
Right.
cooldown again.
Yeah.
So it makes them a pretty bad. I wouldn't really say a bad option, but it's also not an option you would go for if you're trying to actually push keys. But if you're doing like
Right.
the average,
That
like
I
if you're just doing the average key, I would say that it's probably a really good option because it has good
right.
survivability, good utility, also brings a group buff. You know, it's overall just
Right.
really good.
Right. And I just like when we're talking like average keys right now,
Mhm.
I'm talking like I would assume this is where you're talking the 10 to 12, 13 range as the average key.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
yeah, because most people right now, I feel in the community for season 2 are either doing 12s and 13s because they are trying to get their 3K.
Mhm.
And most people that already have their 3K are only running 10s to get their mythic slots done.
Yeah.
Or they're running 12s because I feel that this season as a whole, 12s are what I like to say, like, I feel like they're easier than 10s because you don't have to deal with the affixes. It's just like straight, like, you know what's happening, you know what's going to go, and you just go. And most people, they are at the point, if they're sitting and doing mostly just 12s, they know where all the damage is coming, they know where everything's going. It feels more fluid. So,
Mhm.
just side take, and I don't know if you feel that way also.
I feel like I think the 12 range is probably like end up being the best range to farm, not
Mm-hmm.
only for your vault, but it's also the best range to farm for your crest too,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. It makes it's very easy because you don't have that fourth affix that you have to sit there and you have to be like running around chasing, or you have to kill like an extra mob,
Right.
or you have
Right.
to use group CC to stun something. Like that's a good part of it. Because the 12 range, you can stay at a good spot to where it's pretty much comfortable. All you have to deal
Right.
with is just the mobs, the bosses. That's all you got to deal with. You
Yeah.
don't have to deal with any other fix or anything like that. So you can just stay focused. You can sit there, watch interrupts, and like so forth. You don't have to worry about the other fix coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So it overall makes the key clean, but in a way it kind of bothers me in a way too though, because I kind of miss that fourth affix being there.
I do too.
But
I
that could just be me, honestly.
so, so I was kind of I had this discussion with a couple of people in Discord a couple of days ago about how uh, the keys themselves definitely feel a little bit different
Hmm.
um, because of how they ended up changing stuff, and I know that we're gonna get into that with the rest of the guys. We're gonna have another roundtable. Tank's gonna be joining us, and I'm gonna have Magum, and we're gonna have Pow also. We're gonna kind of talk about it from like each specific perspective, being like a tank, a healer, and a DPS. We're gonna be talking about that stuff and how the keys themselves feel different and stuff like that. So I really don't want to deep dive into that stuff right now,
Yeah.
because I know that we could definitely talk about it. But the when it comes to the affixes themselves, they definitely have a different feel now than they did back in Shadowlands, BFA, what is it called, and all the other uh,
Legion.
Legion, even like Legion, and what the hell was the last expansion? Why can't I think of it?
Well,
Uh,
Draenor
yeah,
had
no,
they had time trials, but
yeah, no, they
they didn't
didn't
really
have
have
it,
a fixes for them.
and Mop didn't either. But why can't I think of the last dang expansion we just did?
Oh,
Dragonflight.
Dragonflight. Yeah.
So yeah, so like
It must not have been good enough if we didn't remember it.
oh my god, neither of us. It took us a minute. It took us a minute. But like yeah, those things definitely you can definitely feel that they're different. But like I said, we'll
Yeah.
definitely I would like that is definitely a topic discussion that I want to talk about with the rest of the guys. So
Mhm.
that's we're gonna put aside to that. So being that the tanks themselves right now are kind of the way they are, like you said, that are those three classes. I'm kind of personally sad that the druid isn't going to be as strong because
Mhm.
I can tell from just seeing the notes and everything like that, not having the ability to get lunar beam back is going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
Being that I know that I use that as a heal point because I
Mhm.
know I'm like, all right, well, this is going to be big damage. We're going to bring it out. I'll do this. I'll start with the lunar beam, get my health high there. I'll go into my frenzy rejuve. My lunar beam will be back. I'll be able to use that. By that time that's done, I can be able to do frenzy rejuve, so it can kind of flow.
Mhm.
And without having that flow, it makes me wonder how are we going to make that live a little bit longer. Maybe the was it Ursul's Thrash or whatever that gives you the absorb bubble. I'm not too sure. Um, I'm hoping to see where we're going to end up going with that because we were also talking about how like most of the 10 classes are they feel strong enough to deal with that middle range, the average key range, but that higher level, how do you think the those top three are gonna end up performing from what you see? Because Brewmaster is getting a rework.
Mhm.
They've already kind of talked about that. Is there another tank that's getting a rework too?
Prot Warrior's getting a rework
Pro,
as well.
yeah, Prot Warriors too. That's the other one.
the the thing about Proud Warrior with their rework, the way how it sits,
Yeah.
they have something called Fueled by Violence.
Mm-hmm.
Their dot damage that they end up having, 200% of the damage that you deal with your dots, so that ends up being your deep wounds, that would end up being your rend. Those two dots right there, and those are ticking really hard, especially when you think about how the tier set works. Because whenever you look at the tier set,
The tier set
uh,
is what? So people will know what that is. Do you know what it is?
I don't know what it is on the top of my head, but I know that the four piece for the tier set, if you end up getting a critical strike with your shield slam, your dot damage, which all your like bleeds, for instance, so your deep wounds and your rend is increased by an additional 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, fueled by violence, what it ends up doing is
Right.
it heals you for 200% of the damage that is done with your dots. So there's points and times, and I'm sure you could probably find a video out there about it, but Prot Warrior is healing more than Blood Death Knight
Right.
in
Wow.
some situations of keys. It depends what happens, but the more mobs you pull, the more likely you are to survive that pull as a protection warrior, which is kind of wild to say because
Mm-hmm.
self healing for a Prot Warrior has never been
Never been their strong suits.
never been their strong suit.
No.
They've always needed a healer. They've always been they've required a healer in general, which is kind of weird to go from requiring a healer to now you're self-sustaining yourself depending on how good you could do your rotation and how much you can basically critical strike the mobs with your shield slam, because the more shield slams you get, the more critical strikes that they do, the
Right.
longer you can keep that buff up, and the more damage that you're dealing with your dot, so you can stay alive for a longer period of time. There's a video of a guy, he ended up tanking like half of a dungeon, and he killed everything by himself, just a
Yeah.
protection warrior, and he was sitting there doing probably like 15 mil HPS just by himself.
Do you do you think that the amount of healing that tanks are doing now is too much?
I wouldn't
Or
necessarily say too much, honestly, because think I see what they're trying to do, because I think they're trying
mm-hmm.
to go like get away from where healers need to focus on tanks. And like I think they want them to focus on tanks less, but they want tanks to do as much damage as DPS because in the PTR right now, tanks are doing as just as much
Yeah,
damage as the DPS because I think they're mainly doing it that way because of the way how tanks are like was played in the past. People like seeing big numbers.
yeah,
That's how it's always been in
yeah,
WoW. You love seeing big numbers, but for last season, it wasn't really. It was only like that because of Protection Paladin.
yeah.
Big numbers with Protection Paladin doing just as much damage as the DPS. It was all fun. They were also super tanky.
Right.
Well, next season it's pretty much the same thing, but we're doing just as much damage as the actual DPS. But I
Yeah.
think they're mainly doing it that way because they want the DPS players to be able to play tank too, and they want them to feel comfortable in a way.
Oh, so you're thinking that
They're trying to
you're tr-
essentially get more tank players
right,
because there's so little of them.
right, and that is definitely something that has been trending and something I've definitely had discussions with other people about. I find when I begin a season, and this is why I've started playing multiple different classes, doing multiple different things at all times. In the beginning of the seasons, I play, mostly my DPS because I have an abundance of healers and I have an abundance of tanks around.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of weeks after that, I start noticing that I have less healers and more tanks and DPS. And then towards the end of the season, I see more healers and more DPS, but less tanks.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like there's this change in the pug mentality and pug thought process of when you're going through your keys and through the
Mm-hmm.
season. Because in the beginning of the season, you have all of these super strong players that are able to just pump and get their 3K within the first, like, I'm gonna overestimate, like, 4 weeks, and then they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm done, and then they're out. And you, like, some people you never see again. And
Yeah.
then you have your other players who don't take that long, and it takes a little bit longer to progress and a little more lenient, which is more of my type of feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts to get a little harder and harder and harder towards the end of the season because there's less of a pool of people to play with and to pick
Yeah.
from. And those people that are like flying through the beginning of it, they're just done with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I feel it's been. And if I see Blizz that they decide, hey, we're gonna end up trying to get more people to come and play, you know, um, tank classes, then that's great. I know that, like, I've been super turned off by playing a healer class in the beginning of almost every season because it's not enjoyable for me trying to deal with the fluctuation in pug life of healing when people don't know where to interrupt, what to do, or anything like that, and that just drives me crazy. And that's why I don't touch my healer until probably like week 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, that's just me. So, um, so overall, coming back to the tanks, you were saying, so the rework that's happening with the monks,
Mm-hmm.
how is that making them, like, stronger in a way? Because they're doing pretty decent numbers now, and they feel like they got some pretty decent survivability. How is that propelling them even farther forward?
Well, next season, they ended up getting a change. I didn't really follow the detail of the exact change for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty sure their stagger ended up getting changed.
Yeah,
It seems like they can tank bigger pools now, considering that they couldn't really tank bigger pools from before because they were
right.
limited by the way how their stagger worked.
Yeah, that's how I kind of read it as. It seemed like because of, like I said, because I've been playing my monk and I've been reading up on this stuff. It seems like the way that stagger worked before wasn't nearly as strong as it's working now. I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
as it's right now in season 2, stagger felt like it was their only survivability point other than celestial brew and fortifying brew. So the new changes that they're making is they're essentially giving them another type of brew, so that allows them to have a different type of absorb shield. So they have three like bigger defensive cooldowns to use, and they're changing the, I think it's Zen meditation, how that
Yeah.
works too. So it all seems to be affecting things a little bit differently.
I think Zen meditation. I think the way how they ended up making it now for this new season, because before if you ended up getting hit by like a melee or something like that, it would end up
Yeah.
canceling it. Or if you ended up getting hit by like a spell or something, you can only take one spell and then it would cancel it.
Right.
I'm pretty sure the way how they made it next season, which I ended up figuring this out whenever I was in Halls of Atonement. Um, you would go onto the third boss. There was a bunch of things casting on you, which that right there made it really tough. Actually, well, it's either the third boss or second. I think it's the second boss. But there was a bunch of these little mini gargoyles that come out that would cast
Right.
on you. All of them cast on you at the
Second
same
boss. Yeah.
time. They can sit there. They could potentially one shot you
Mm-hmm.
because stagger doesn't stagger magic damage. It does
Correct.
sometimes, but not all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the way how it ended up working is Zen Med. If you ended up going in Zen Med before you end up getting hit, you can take all of them, but you actually sat in Zen Med the rest of the time too, because it ended up not going away, which I ended
Mm-hmm.
up noticing with one of the changes. So you could sit there, you could take as many magic hits as you want, it won't go away. But if you end up getting a melee, it will cancel it.
Mm-hmm.
So in potential, you would sit there, you would roll away from the boss, you would start Zen medding, and then you would take all the hits from the cast. Once you got Zen Med on cooldown, you would go back in, start doing more damage to the boss when the next casts are about to go off, defuse magic, so on.
Yeah.
It's an easy way to rotate your defenses. And at that point, you would have to hope that your group has them all dead or gathered by then, which it would
Mm-hmm.
in some cases, for like Demon Hunter, they just sigil chains and they
Mm-hmm.
can sit there and just silence all of them. Simple for them. We're just challenging shout. We interrupt all of them. It's simple for us.
Mm-hmm.
Brewmaster Monk, they have a lot of stuff they need to do to be able to get them together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essentially group grabbing. It kind of makes it's definitely a little bit harder for them because they actually essentially need some help. Which Frost
Right.
VK next season is like a very good DPS character. So you would essentially take one of them so they can help grip things in for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they lost their slappy hands, so that kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of very bad for them. But it's also balancing issue, I guess. As far as the tanks go, and plus like Zen Med is a wonderful change. They needed that type of change,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. It definitely makes them a very strong tank. They still lack in utility though. That's their only downside.
Yeah.
Their survivability though, it is comparable to the two other tanks that are at the top two right
Yeah.
now.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So they're essentially those three tanks are going to be fighting for the top spot throughout the whole season. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like with this new upcoming season, unless there's a change to Warrior or VDH or something like that that like absolutely kills the class off,
Mm-hmm.
those three tanks are going to be fighting for that top spot the whole entire season. So I think it's going to be a close race. But the question is, what kind of comp are you going to
Right.
bring? So that's because you have to think you have to take into account about the raid buffs that you're going to bring. Which, if you're going to be running a melee comp, you obviously probably want a druid because druid ends up bringing burst buff, which burst buff is normally really good for, especially if you're bringing like melee characters or something like that, because they increase your burst by like 3% or something like that. So that's three
Burst three.
percent
Yeah.
increase. Yeah, that's 3% increased damage. So it's also 1.5% increase to damage reduction as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for a melee character, that's
That's a
huge,
lot. Yeah.
right? But if you also have to sit here and think about this too, though, because Brewmaster with their Mystic Touch change, how is that going to work? Because now you have an 8% melee buff. Would you rather take the 3% buff, or the 3% buff with the 1.5 DR, or would you rather take the 8% buff and have no DR,
Mm-hmm.
but you still get just the 8% buff?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a balancing issue at that point for like far as group comp goes. And that also plays a massive part for tanks too, because that extra DR, it really helps.
Mm-hmm.
It really really helps.
What do you think, because of Vengeance Demon Hunter being, in that, that thought process of being in the top for the season, Why do you think that Vengeance Demon Hunter is with that grouping?
Mainly because of Chaos Brand.
Mm-hmm.
Chaos Brand, with the way how it is, increasing your magic damage, no, on top of that, chaos damage. So it's really good for like let's just say Havoc, for instance, because even though Havoc has their own buff, they still fit into that melee category.
Mm-hmm.
So it, let's just put it like this. Let's just say you have let's say you have a Brewmaster, you have a Havoc
Mm-hmm.
Demon Hunter, a Feral Druid, and then you have a Ret Paladin.
Mm-hmm.
What class would you say is getting boosted out of that whole entire group comp?
I'm sorry, you're saying let me just redo this. A Red Pally, and what was the other one?
So let's just say you have a Brewmaster,
Mm-hmm.
a Havoc Demon Hunter,
Mm-hmm.
a Feral Druid, and a Ret Paladin. What class do you think is being boosted throughout that whole comp?
The most out of all of that,
Yeah, out of all of that,
probably the Feral Druid.
it's the Ret Paladin because
Really?
he's getting Chaos Brand. He's getting Mark of the Wild.
Okay.
So he's also getting Brewmaster buff.
Oh,
So
it's true.
he's getting all three of those buffs when the two others are only benefiting from
Oh,
only
the
two.
two. Yeah, I could see that.
So it it's crazy how that's going to be balanced because Ret Paladin, the way how it sits in PTR at the moment, they are also doing very good.
Yeah.
Which the honestly, I have to say all the classes are really doing good. Um, considering like just from what I've played with so far, it seems like all of the classes are a very good pair with all the
Mm-hmm.
tanks, but some lack more than others. Like if you're going to be playing with the Brewmaster, normally you want a physical comp. That's just what you want because the way how Mystic Touch works and stuff like that. So you're trying to boost all melee classes
Mm-hmm.
around the Brewmaster.
So if you are pushing keys, I would say in the fifth to the 14s, 15s up, you really are looking to push. You really need to take that moment to kind of figure out what your group comp is and where
Yeah,
you're going to be the most beneficial to each other.
yeah, pretty
That's
much.
that's what it seems like the biggest point of of what the PTR is looking like
Yeah, pretty much.
because of where each classes are sitting and doing that, because like we were talking in in the channel before, all the DPS classes are feeling pretty equal
Mhm.
alone, which means now it's just where are they all going to be grouping together.
Yeah, it's pretty much going to be where does all the classes stand and where do they excel at?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's some places that some classes are better than others.
Mm-hmm.
Because you also have to take account of some melee classes being like target capped, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, some tank classes being target capped. Uh, what tanks can survive this big pool and what tanks will just fall over right
Yeah.
here? uh can you take this big hit plus take the two additional hits from something else? So there's always something that that's going to stop you,
Mm-hmm.
but as learning as a group, that's something that you have to overcome and learn about how to play around your comp, especially if you have target caps people.
Right. Right. Do you and it's really not beneficial at the public level to be changing your classes per dungeon.
Yeah,
Whereas a lot of
pretty
people,
much.
yeah, you can't do that in the public, WoW sphere. But at MDI, when they can end up picking whatever class, doing whatever, doing exactly what they need to do for
Yeah,
this
with
class, that's a different story. But in the public, sphere of things, that's going to be a lot more difficult to level. Like multiple different
mm,
classes, gear them all up at that level, keep
I
swapping.
would say unless you're an alcoholic, I would say that you would probably never reach the point to where you will have the meta class for every dungeon,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. Unless unless you're playing with pugs or something like that,
Hmm.
you will never have the meta class for that specific dungeon.
Yeah.
It's just that simple,
Yeah.
honestly. Because with the way how next season is going to end up being, because obviously everybody knows we're getting Gambit back.
Yep.
The first pool,
That's very
yeah,
caster heavy, isn't it?
yeah,
If I remember.
that's very caster heavy, but it's also very target heavy too.
Hmm.
So you also have to think first pull, you're doing the first four. Let's just put it like that. You're doing the first four packs. First four packs consist of, I think it said it was like 56 or 70 mobs just into that first pack. So you need something that's going to essentially just kill everything. Like
Right.
you need something that's going to nuke. So you would sit there and you would find one class that isn't target capped, and normally you would try to boost around that class so they can
Just
kill
shred
every
everything.
yeah, just shred everything throughout the key. But later on in the key, you also have to think that normally they excel in super heavy AoE, and where the AoE starts to get lighter, they start
Hmm.
to become less and less useful throughout the
Right.
key. So that's like something that you have to sit there and take account about.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something hard to bring up, and it's also hard to build around because you're building around a specific class, but it also kind of sucks in a way too, though, because if you build around a specific class, it starts to become useless later on.
Hmm.
I wouldn't really say useless later on, but
Less
it becomes
beneficial.
yeah, it becomes definitely less beneficial to the group. So normally you would try to have something that has like a really good AoE and like really good single target,
Hmm. And
but
I think that like one class that's doing really well in that sphere is actually Balance Druid, and the reason for that is
yes.
because they are super uncapped, and their 4 piece. If you end up doing a Star Surge, it breaks apart, so it can hit multiple different classes now. So
Mhm.
it's turned into the point where when you're if you're looking to just burn your lunar energy and you end up like using your Starfall and your Star Surge, like it's gonna end up producing a ton of damage. So either
Yeah.
way, it works out really well. So
Yeah, pretty much.
yeah.
But this is something that I wanted to I wanted to bring up. Just the way how Balanced Druid is next
Hmm.
season. Balanced Druid is being known as a it's more of a prio target class now,
Hmm.
which is really which is really weird for Balanced Druid,
Hmm.
considering how like Arcane Mage is like a prio target, and Balance Druid being a prio target now too. That's gonna like set the comp diversity like really bad because uh Arcane Mage, Touch of the Magi. I mean, you need your target to live.
Hmm.
But if Balance Druid, if they delete that target, your Arcane Mage is out of the picture for the
Yeah.
rest of the time.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be very hard to play around that. Especially with the way how bosses and stuff like that are going to be next season. Because if you're bringing a balance for it, obviously you need to start pulling mobs onto the boss.
Hmm.
That way they can get
The Yep.
the full might of their prio target, and the way how their star surge and their four step
The
procs
beams.
and so
Yep.
on. Um, Also we need to take into account like how their silence is.
Hmm.
So you really want to pull around them like as
Yeah.
much as possible. But in a way, there's no such thing as pulling around a class when you think
Yeah.
about it. All classes are good. All classes can pretty much do the same thing. It's just how the person plays that class
Hmm.
and what they can do with it.
and and I've like we've done enough dungeons together. We did like
Mhm,
a bunch of high keys in the past, and one of the things that was kind of like I play my boomkin pretty well, and I play my hunter pretty well, but I play them both vastly differently, and I can tell when I haven't played my class for a
mhm,
while because you can kind of feel that like that lurching change.
mhm,
And when other people are going to kind of be sitting there and doing like the same thing, the people are going to feel it. And I think that that's something that people don't take into account is like that human factor
mhm.
of how the dungeons are going to feel, because for like those people, like, because I don't feel particularly well playing Floodgate. If you remember that Floodgate I was in with you,
Mhm.
and like Motherlode, I don't feel particularly confident in those dungeons because they aren't like my best dungeons I play at. And if
Mhm.
that's the case for certain people, you're gonna feel that in their classes too when they play it. So
Mhm.
they have to like that's the one thing I will tell people: if you are playing like and you are trying to get better, play the dungeons you don't feel comfortable with to get better. Like that
Yeah,
is something that,
that's something I would definitely recommend.
yes.
If you don't like a dungeon and you don't you don't like the way it feels, do that dungeon consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Just just keep doing it over and over and over. You can even try it one key level higher and over and over. You want
Mm-hmm.
to get used to that dungeon as much as possible. You want to know where the damage comes in.
Mm-hmm.
You you want to be fluent in that key much as possible.
Yep. This season coming up, with the only one not being the, what's it called, Echo Dome.
Hmm.
I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
So Echo Dome is the only one that I do not feel confident in because I've never been in there, and I haven't touched PTR this season, but all of the other dungeons I've already played, I've already done. I already kind of like have a general idea of what I'm doing in those dungeons. That when I go in there for next season, I'm gonna be okay to go in and tank the from the start. Whereas in the
Yeah.
past, I wouldn't really feel that comfortable. So with Echo, I'll probably go in. I'll play on my Hunter. I'll play on my Druid. I'll balance that up for a little bit. But after probably like a week or two, I'll be like, oh, okay, I understand this, and then I'll kind of flow in. And
Mm.
that's that's kind of an interesting thought to kind of to talk about. So
Mhm.
um yeah. Now, as for the tanks for next season, kind of just
Yeah.
do just a little a synopsis of your ending thoughts of how things are going to play out. What do you think is going to play out as like your 1, 2, and 3? Like, and I know right now they're all kind of like fighting for the top, but what do you think your 1, 2, and 3 is for your tanks?
A one, two, and three for my tanks. The way how it sits right now, I'm obviously a Proud Warrior player.
Right.
Proud Warrior to me, I'm very biased. Proud Warrior's king.
Yeah.
No one will ever replace that class for me. Hmm. Been playing it for a really, really long time. It ended up getting top in the world at one point with it, quite a couple times actually. Um, just the way how it just the way how it plays, very fluent.
Hmm.
There was a point in time where Proud Warrior really sucked, which it was all throughout Shadowlands.
Hmm.
It was never once good. Not one time. Maybe at the beginning of the season of Shadowlands because people thought it was going to be very good, but it ended up being Demon Hunter kite meta, which
Yeah.
nobody liked that.
No. No. I still
Nobody likes the kite meta,
I get a PTSD
which
thinking of it. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that's the thing about Brewmaster being chosen as a particular meta class next season because once they end up getting into the higher keys, what do you think might happen? You think they might end up going back to being kite meta, or that's one of the factors that you have to sit there and take in, which is really scary because normally some people want to work on a class, they want to be able to sit there, they just want to be able to just tank the mobs.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want
Take to the
to
face.
yeah, they just want to sit there, they just want to take everything to the face almost. But there's a fine line when you have to know I ran out of stuff. I gotta go. I
Mm-hmm.
gotta get out. I gotta get away. I gotta get topped up. Once I get topped back up, maybe I can go back in, do a few things, make sure I keep aggro of everything, and then I can go ahead and start chain pulling to the next pull, and getting ready while they're finishing off the rest of the stuff. So the way how key sits right now, tanks control the key. They control the outcome of
Mm-hmm.
the key. They control how everything's going to go. The way how it the way how it sits, there's definitely a fine line between a good player and a bad player. A good player would go in, they'd use all their utility, they use their CC, they'll know exactly how to interrupt and how to play around their group
Mm-hmm.
and how and how mobs need to be pulled. Where to a bad player, they just go in, they think they can just tank the key, they think they can just copy whatever a Twitch streamer does,
Mm-hmm.
and they just go in and they wipe everybody, and that's the
Yep.
end of the key. Where a good tank, they would know how to control the pack, keep the pack under control the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
and know the fine line of when they need to get out. That way, some stuff will stop casting on some people because there is some mobs like that in some dungeons where
Mm-hmm.
they don't start casting on a random person until your tank can basically just leap away for like for me for instance. I can just leap away, the mob will try to follow me and it'll stop casting.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a good fine line. But for a regular everyday just come home from work player, they
Mm-hmm.
would go into the dungeon, they would just try to tank that mob, and their friendlies are just getting gunned down by a bunch of these casts, and they're just dying.
So,
Like,
so one of the best examples, what you're saying and what you're talking about, I had a situation where
mhm,
first pull of Dark Flame Clef, you pull everything in that first room, you
yep,
pull the first two packs on the far side, you dart back and you LOS them around a corner. So I had a monk do that and didn't and the people in the group weren't end game players because this was a 13. I was in there
yeah,
and we go around the corner and he just flopped over dead. And he was like, "Where's my heals?" And I'm just sitting there going like, I knew you were going to be pulled back. Everybody else followed him in to the room and just
mhm,
got gunned down by the other guy, by the mobs on the far side that he's pulling back. And those two packs on the other side of the wall are the ones that are going to just straight up destroy anybody that gets in their range. And if in two things. One, if the tank communicated a little bit better and told us, "Hey, sit back," would have been one
mhm,
thing. The other thing is that if people aren't experienced enough in those higher end stuff, especially now because we're in week 19, um, like you got to be a little bit more cautious as a tank. And like you were
yeah.
saying, the tanks are who are running these keys now. They're the
Yeah,
ones
they
that are
they
timing
they
them.
can they control the outcome of the key
Mm-hmm.
just because of the way how they pull the packs, the way how they use their utility, the way just
Mm-hmm.
everything that they do. Because you would just have, let's just put it like this: you have a demon hunter, they leap in, they do sigil chains, and they do silent sigil.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a downside to that though. Now if you end up using everything that you have at once, you have nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing you got is Chaos Nova plus Sigil Fear
Mm-hmm.
or Misery or whatever. And those right there, you're adding to the DR table. You're making it worse for your group
Yep.
when you can just have, let's just say you have like a Shaman or something like that. As soon as you get in, everything's pulled, cap totem.
Mm-hmm.
That right there, they're down for like 3 or 4 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. They're only DR'd by 20%. So you would follow up with the next longest stun. Let's just say you have a monk lake sweep right there.
Mm-hmm.
They're down for 2.5 seconds, longer time. Now at that point, they're DR'd by 40%. So you can only use 3 more stuns at that point before
Mm-hmm.
they're full DR'd.
Mm-hmm.
Before you want to use another spell, you would chains, sigil silence, and nobody casts nothing for a while. Nobody casts anything for a while, and at that point right there, you have time for the DR to drop.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody's casting anything for those next 3 to 4 seconds. And then let's just say, oh, we need to follow up with the interrupts for this certain point. That way we can make sure the DR table fully resets. And at that point, you would sit there, interrupt everything. Once everything's interrupted, you can go back. You should have Cap Totem, Lake Sweep back at the same time. You're not going to have Silent Sigil or Sigil Chains back. But if you're that long into the pool, everything should be dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In theory,
Yeah.
everything should just be dead.
And if things aren't dead, then it's a DPS issue at that point.
Yeah, at that point, it would end up being a DPS problem.
Yeah,
Unless you're in, I would say, a high key standing, but even in a high
yeah,
key standing, packs won't last that long.
yep, yep. So you're saying from your thoughts, number one is going to be Prot Warrior. Number two would be Brewer DH or yeah, or Vengeance
To
Demon Hunter.
be so, it really depends on how the other classes will end up working with the three tanks,
Yeah.
because obviously the melees. If you're going to be playing a melee character, most likely you're going to be with a brewmaster.
Mm-hmm.
That's just simple.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to end up playing magic, most likely you're going to be end up playing with the Vengeance Demon Hunter. If you're playing Prot Warrior, in that case, you would either A, have to take a Mistweaver Monk, or you would have to take a Windwalker,
Yeah.
Windwalker Monk. If you're looking to play like any sort of melee comp,
Mm-hmm.
if you're playing a caster comp a with a Prot Warrior, you would end up having to have a
Havoc.
yeah, you would have to have a Havoc Demon Hunter.
Yeah.
Plus, you would also have to have Arcane Mage with Arcane Intellect, so
Yeah.
on. Um, there's so many comps that you can make right now, and I don't know. Next season is probably the most balanced that it's been in a really really long time.
Yeah.
Besides from season one, well, not season one, more like season three of Legion. Everything in season three of Legion, I would say, had a very balanced gameplay,
Mm-hmm.
which the game from then hasn't been balanced in a really long time up
Mm-hmm.
until next season. Next season, I feel like it's probably the most balanced that the game has ever felt, to be completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just the way how like all the tanks and stuff like work and things for next season.
Yeah.
Some tanks have their shortcomings, but they're still playable.
Mm-hmm.
They're still good picks. If you're doing like if you're looking at it from a high key standing,
Mm-hmm.
there's only like three actual tanks that would be a really good pick, which having three tanks as an option to pick from, that itself is really good,
Yeah.
especially with a set of DPS. Now that the three tanks that are going to be coming and all three of them are going to end up being meta classes, that opens a wide variety of other DPS you can bring. That ends up opening the window of being able to bring hunters, any type of melee class. So you'll be able to bring an arms warrior, fury warrior. You'll be able to bring windwalker monks. You'll be able to bring outlaw rogues. So on. It opens the doors to almost
Mm-hmm.
all the classes at that point.
Yeah.
Some classes still have their shortcomings, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but other classes they are the doors are open for them now.
Yeah.
They every class will probably end up being good.
Mm-hmm.
Some classes, obviously, as I said, they have the shortcomings. They some classes are target capped, but it depends on the way how the tank ends up pulling to really make that class viable or not viable.
Yep. Agreed. So, I think season 3 is going to probably be one of the more enjoyable seasons. I'm saying that now, and I'm kind of excited that that's happening. I'm excited with the dungeons. I think the dungeons are going to be enjoyable this season.
Yep.
It felt like when it came to that stuff, um, like there was like people didn't want to run, at least one or two of the dungeons in the first season. The
Mhm.
second season, I feel like there was a couple that I was very much questioning, but they're not that bad. I should say they're not as bad as the first season. So I
Mm.
think that knowing that and seeing where it is now, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
As a kind of like a final note for that, and as it comes for the viewpoint of tanks, for myself, I think that, like you were saying, I think that the tanks are going to feel really good no matter
Yeah.
what and how they're going to play. I'm excited to see where they're going to be. I'm excited
Mhm.
to see how high they're going to push. Like once you start seeing those higher end players getting that mythic gear, getting everything going after the race to world first is done, seeing how all of that kind of flows. Because after the race for world first ends, all those people start doing Mythic Plus like nonstop because
Yeah,
that's their enjoyment and their fun. So I'm kind of
hmm
excited to see how that flows, and I'm kind of excited to see how Raid's operating. I don't really want to go into that tangent because that's a whole another discussion for another day.
yeah,
But like I think that overall, I think that tanks are looking good. I
hmm
think that DPS is looking good.
yeah,
I
for
think that
sure.
the healers are from the stuff I've been reading in the discussions in the forums. Um, I think that some are feeling a lot stronger than others, but
hmm
overall, the average players are going to be able to continue to do their 12s and 13s with whatever healer they decide to do.
Yeah,
So so
100%.
so I think it's going to be really really nice. So is there anything else you wanted to say before we start signing off?
No, sir.
No, man, a few words.
Yeah, I'm a man of few words.
man,
Normally I'm not very good of like asking like some people questions unless it's like of like because normally you do like a lot of like viewer keys and like so on and stuff
Mhm,
like that. From playing with the amount of people that you've helped carry like through keys and
mhm.
like so on. What would you say that you've had the biggest issue of being able to do that?
Of being able to do carry keys.
Yeah, being able to do carry keys because me myself, I'm more of a pusher. I don't really do carries like
So
that often. There's some points in times where I pop in with you and do it, but I'm
right,
not around long enough to like
right.
really understand of like.
So there's two things. There's two things that I would say is an important factor when you're doing carry keys, and this is something
Mhm,
I've already been thinking of and trying to figure out for season three. So the hardest part about carry keys is getting a group of 4 people that are willing to do it, that are going to be on time, that are going to be willing to push keys no matter what. Taking a little bit
yeah.
of time, it's a little lenient. That's one thing that's difficult. Finding people that understand that.
Mhm,
And the other thing is having that carry brought in, having them like having them allowing them to enjoy themselves and not also scuffing the key.
yeah.
Because once you start doing 12s and you start having that 15-second for death, that can scuff a key real quick. If you have
Oh
a
yeah, it
person that's
definitely
in there
can.
that doesn't know what to stand or what not to stand, if there's like certain bosses or things, I'll be like, yo, just stand outside. When people are doing AOTC Gallywix kills, there's
Mhm,
some people that would say, hey, listen, once we start, just jump into the center hall. We'll take care of the rest. You don't have to be here.
yeah.
So like there's nothing against the people and the carries that are coming in or anybody that's like that. It's just one
Mhm,
of those things where it has to be kind of communicated. And
mhm,
once and the other thing is that when people are coming for carries, it's mostly for enjoyment. For us
mhm,
and for them. Because, we like to see big numbers. If we're
yeah.
pushing 14s, 15s, or whatever it is for keys,
Mhm,
that is stressful and it's a lot of mental fatigue. So when you're kind
yeah.
of taking that step back and you're doing 10s or 12s or 13s, or not so much 13s, more so 12s, it's more just like a
Mhm,
chill key. And you're kind of just like, all right, let's go do it. Like, it's like going to the bar and having a drink. It's like, oh, all right, this is kind of fun. This is kind of relaxing.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, so like that's kind of outlook on things when you're implementing classes to it. It's a,
Mhm,
it'll take a little bit of a twist. Like if I end up using, let's say like Dak will come, he'll him being his prop pally, and then like I'll end up like bringing either my hunter or I'll end up like bringing a brew or whatever like that. You'd want to have it complemented, or if like I had somebody else that wanted to be a hunter, I could run brew, getting all that together, and then getting some type of a healer. Let's say Ash comes on her druid or whatever. That's like a pretty
mhm,
decent comp to help to do a carry because even though it's 4 people and not 5, it's still gonna up our DPS because having, you know, the red pally, having a hunter, having a monk, like a brewmaster monk, and then having
Mm-hmm.
a, you know, a resto druid there. All of them kind of complement each other to a certain extent, that are going to buff each other to
Yeah.
help with those carry keys. So like all that stuff is kind of been, we've been talking about it a little bit in the background and kind of trying to figuring things out. So it's going to be really interesting seeing, you know, next season how it's going to end up being, because these dungeons, I will say, are definitely interesting dungeons because we've already dealt with them, but all of them are
Mm-hmm.
getting tweaked just a little bit. And all I'm
Yeah.
going to say is we all know about bubbles, like stuff like that. The changes with bubbles, you know, the changes that
Oh man, they did
they did,
Bubbles
they did
dirty.
them dirty. I hate it.
They
I hate
did
it.
it. They did him
I,
dirty.
I,
But
for people that don't know about that, when you go into Floodgate, don't cry. And then the other thing is like, I want to see the changes they did with Halls of Atonement, because you
yes.
know I want to see that stuff, and I'm kind of excited to see if the same routes that I'm used to doing will work in there too, because I did them so much back in Shadowlands, like because I've been doing carries since BFA, so like I know the BFA, um, Shadowlands, Dragonflight, all like I've done those things so much that my brain is just ingrained for all those dungeons. So I'm excited to see them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, in conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
Mediocre Tank, please tell anyone who's watching where they can find you, what you're doing, things of that nature. What exciting things are on the, you know, coming around the bend.
Well, if you want to find me, you can obviously find me on Twitch, which is MediocreTank. Obviously, you could also find me actually on YouTube, which I'm gonna actually start posting YouTube content very soon.
There you go.
So that's gonna be very exciting to get into. You can also find me on TikTok, which I'm starting to work more towards it. I'm gonna try to start streaming on Twitch more. I've been having like on and off issues with Twitch, obviously. Uh, but I will eventually be streaming on there more again, which I'm gonna try to be streaming all 7 days throughout the week if I possibly can. If I can't, most likely it'll probably end up being on weekends when
Mm-hmm.
I can't stream.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I will try to stream like throughout the week when I can, obviously. But I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, if you wanna find me, obviously you can just always message me on Discord if you have like any sort of like tank questions or something like that, which is mediocre tank on Discord.
There you go. You know, thank you very much for taking the time to come and sit with us and
Mhm.
talk all things tank and season
Yep.
3 stuff. It's gonna be fun. As for everybody else, Lord PeteyTV on Twitch and YouTube every single Monday through Friday. We have lots of content coming out on YouTube, including this, and lots of other fun stuff that's coming, mostly World of Warcraft, lots of discussion pieces, and things like that too. So thanks again, everyone, for checking us out, and hopefully we'll see you chat. So thank you so much. Enjoy and have a fantastic weekend. Bye, everybody.